Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This talk is being recorded for training purposes. I love Picasso, but I wouldn't want to marry him. And to be frank, after the research I have done, I would not even want to be his friend. But I come not to bury Picasso. I'm pretty sure that was taken care of not long after he died in 1973. I didn't check that, actually, but let's not get bogged down in details, because I find that historical facts get in the way of unfounded certitude. I never met Picasso, as I was only 3 years old when he died, and I was too young to fly to the funeral because I didn't have a pilot's license. But in my capacity as guest art historian, it's almost as though I was a tiny time-travelling fly on the wall with a reel-to-reel recorder. What I can do is offer my insights into the life and work of one of the greatest innovators of 20th century art, and due to his wealth, perhaps the greatest renovator of 18th century chateaux. A brand in his own lifetime, Pablo Picasso was able to get his end in at will, willy-nilly, with his willy, leaving a trail of beautiful bodies in his wake, though you wouldn't know that looking at their portraits. Throughout his life, Picasso kept his wives, lovers, and friends close by, regardless of their falling out, playing them off against each other, perhaps just to bolster his own sense of worth at the expense of their own well-being. And it is this paella of intrigue, lust, and creative endeavour that I shall speculate upon with unfettered exaggeration, sprinkle with grains of truth, half bake and serve with relish. So here are my lies that tell a truth. Picasso married twice and had 4 children by 3 women. But wait, there's more. He first married at the age of 3, although this did not last long as his parents found out and had the goat put down. The Monsignor celebrant was sent to a home for deviants and later got a position in Rome as overseer of Vatican livestock. For a short time in his early years, Picasso remained a child, but as this was an impediment to his career as a gifted painter and priapic cad, he soon displayed his gifts as a draftsman, or draftsboy, as evident by some of the early drawings on display in this exhibition. Partly this acceleration to manhood was due to his talent under the tutelage of his father, but mostly it was because childhood was too expensive. Yes, his father was an art teacher and not a farmer who lived on grass cuttings and black sausage. But Pablo had to grow up fast and move to Paris so he could paint and have sex with as many women as possible and avoid distractions such as civil and world wars, flu pandemics, and the Great Depression. Many did not survive their relationship with Picasso, who himself lived to a ripe old age of 136. But the one true believer who stayed longest was Jem Sabatez, failed poet, sculptor, then finally secretary and confidant to Picasso, a gatekeeper. Picasso and Sabatez first met in 1899, and the fledgling poet soon proved himself resourceful, though it was to be several decades before Sabatez would live in Paris again and hold the keys to the castle. Before leaving for Central America, in 1902, Sabatez made Picasso an offer that was to change the course of his work for the next several years. I won't attempt a Spanish accent, but it went down something like this. Pablo, oh, a nice T-shirt. Yeah, thanks, Jamie. You reckon the stripes make me look fat? No, not at all. In fact, actually they make you look taller. Why are you dressed as a sailor? Are you going to a fancy dress party?
No, I'm working. I'm doing some painting.
I thought it might be a disguise to keep your identity secret so that nobody knew you were a painter and could steal your ideas.
No, I just wanted to wear something slimming, you know.
Listen, Pablo, I got a great deal on a shipment of blue paint. About 3 years' worth.
Oh, yeah?
I was thinking, at this price, you could do a whole achromatic series. Picture this. Start with a blue background. I don't know what happens after that. That's up to you, you're the painter. But the price point per painting could make a very good return at this price.
Oh, yeah? You got any vermilion?
Vermilion? No. I'll see what I can do. My man at the shipping company can let me know if something falls off the back of a cart. A vermilion period would be a nice follow-up. Yes. Anyway, I've got an ode to finish for a collection of poems I'm working on. I can swing by the dockyard after I knock out the final stanza.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, Jamie. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a self-portrait here. I've got this identity crisis. I can't seem to shake it.
Do you need a model?
No, self-portrait.
Right. So as Picasso began what was to become his blue period, Separated married and left for Central America to launch his career as an experimental poet. Pablo, I've written something for you as a farewell gift. Would you care to hear it?
No.
It's very short. There once was a painter named Picasso who started each day with espresso that made him so chatty and horny and ratty that ladies would call him an asshole.
Who called me an asshole?
I don't know, no one. I just made it up. It's poetic license because I'm a poet.
How'd you like it if I made up a limerick about you?
It's not a limerick, it's an ode. Or a new form of ode that I've invented. I trust in time it shall be known as the Separated Ode.
Yeah, or a limerick, yeah.
It's why I shall be known as one of the greatest poets of the 20th century.
Well, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can always come back here and be my secretary.
Yes, well, we'll see what they think in Guatemala. Guatemala. There once was a king in Guatemala who tried to have sex with a koala. Oh, yes, that's good. James Sabate's collected poems have been out of print for 108 years. Imprisoned for insulting the vice president of the United Fruit Company, which propped up the dictatorship in Guatemala at the time, Sabates eventually secured his own release after training himself in law. He then set himself up as a divorce lawyer in Lima, Peru, and divorced his first wife and remarried before returning to Paris about 30 years later. But there are no paintings of Sabates in this exhibition. Fernand Olivier makes an appearance, though. During a storm in 1904, Picasso's love life really took off. He met Fernand Olivier, a bohemian artist. She was standing under a tree. They became lovers. I'm not sure if that all happened at once. There was probably lightning. Not long after this, Picasso became quite rich and famous and left Fernand for Marcel Humbert, whom he called Eva Guel. Apparently, he felt entitled to rename people that were close to him. Of course, birthdays and Christmas gifts rarely got to anyone, and due to his stubborn refusal to use anyone's legal name, few people ever received his mail. Then, sadly, in 1915, Eva, whom the rest of the world knew as Marcel, died prematurely. This devastated Picasso, and his refusal to acknowledge her real name did not help matters as he missed the funeral, and several years he couldn't find the Humbert family crypt. But back in 1904, which was the year for falling in love during foul weather, Picasso also met Guillaume Apollinaire, the poet and later wildly unsuccessful art thief who had just started writing pornographic novels. They became flatmates and were to share a common friendship with Cubist painter Georges Braque. Over the next few years, Picasso and Braque got into the habit of daily chats.
G'day, George, how you going? Yeah, no, I can't come over, I'm doing some painting. Yeah, no, I'm working. Look, I need to bring some stuff over. Yeah, no, he's at the library working on his titty novel. Can you get me some props? Yeah, now, and I'm doing a still life, can you bring some stuff over? Yeah, what about that fruit dish? Doesn't matter if you've already painted it, George, mine will be different. Yeah, a pipe? Yeah, good, now bring that. No, I got a guitar. What, a lute? What are you doing with a lute? Do you? Oh yeah, didn't know that. You play much? Oh, right. Yeah, he's still got that mandolin. You know, I can do something with the mandolin. Yeah, okay, bring that. Yeah, not into lutes. I'll be out the back painting. Righto. I need a secretary.
Well, Pablo did need someone sensible around to keep him in check, because prior to this, he and Apollinaire had got a good deal on a couple of Iberian sculptures from one Gérard Bradley Pire. I'm not sure about the middle name, but he was a crim. In 1911, the Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre, and 50,000 francs was offered as a reward. Realising that their Iberian sculptures were also stolen goods, Picasso and Apollinaire returned them to the Paris Journal, hoping that they would be returned anonymously, but they weren't. Apollinaire was charged with complicity and harbouring a thief. He was imprisoned for 6 days until Pire cleared him. And Picasso was subpoenaed by a magistrate, but not charged, and was also questioned for stealing the Mona Lisa, implicated by his good friend Apollinaire. Both were exonerated, though Apollinaire was later jailed in Rome for attempting to make off with Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. Then on August the 2nd, 1914, of course, Germany declared war on France. As a Spanish citizen, Picasso, aged 33, was not compelled to join up, though Apollinaire enlisted and was wounded in the head 2 years later. Picasso was able to visit his old flatmate in hospital and drew several portraits of him with a bandaged head, so that was lucky. Braque, on the other hand, was mobilised at the outset of hostilities and seriously wounded in 1915, though he survived despite not having his portrait done. What is remarkable, though, is that during 1917, during the horror of World War I, a new art movement was spawned. In 1917, Picasso got a designing job with Diaghilev's Ballet Russe. With Jean Cocteau, he travelled from Barcelona to Rome to design sets and costumes for the new production of Parade. It was written by Cocteau, music by Eric Satie, curtain sets and costumes by Picasso, and programme by the poet and failed art thief Apollinaire. In the programme notes, Apollinaire described the show, coining the term surrealism. And love was in the air, for Picasso was getting on very well with the ballet dancer Olga Koklova. She wasn't very good at ballet, but she was very pretty and had good social connections. And this was practice in Diaghilev's company to select a few glamorous and well-connected girls who would bring their own social set to company performances, so that it didn't matter if the truly gifted dancers also had tractor licenses. In 1918, Picasso moved into a very comfy apartment with Olga. She wasn't into the dusty atelier. In July, they married, with Apollinaire and Cocteau as witnesses. Sadly, Apollinaire, also recently married and planning his third attempt on the Elgin marbles, died of Spanish flu about 4 months later. But before they married, Picasso's mother told Olga she didn't know what she was letting herself in for, and if she were a friend, she would tell her not to do it under any conditions. She didn't believe any woman could be happy with her son, as he was available for himself only and no one else. And this is from someone who loved him. Olga introduced Picasso to high society, but they clashed over his bohemian lifestyle and fondness for eating grass and black sausage. In 1921, Olga gave birth to their son Polo. In the same year, Dada announced the death of Cubism. But ever since the confusion over where the real men's toilet was at the 1917 Dada exhibition, people found it very hard to take seriously anything they had to say. Then, after a spate of Cubist murders, Dada was rounded up. Marcel Duchamp was arrested for carrying a concealed staircase, but was released after questioning himself. And the battle continued until 1923, when Dada proclaimed the death of Cubism at an event at the Theatre Michel in Paris. André Breton reacted violently, and the police had to intervene. Dada took out an AVO on Cubism and was not allowed within 50 metres of their subconscious. To escape such controversy, Antibes was the place to holiday in 1923. Picasso and Olga got to know the minor but exquisite American painter Gerald Murphy. No relation. No, not my great-uncle Jerry. He sold ski equipment in Mildura and died bankrupt. But no, the American Gerald Murphy and his wife Sarah were the couple upon whom F. Scott Fitzgerald based the characters of the divers in his 1934 novel Tender as the Night. And of course the nights were very tender for Picasso because he had an affair with Sarah. Other friends who hung out at Antibes, in addition to the Fitzgeralds, included Ernest Hemingway, John Dos Passos, Dorothy Parker and Cole Porter. Gerald Murphy remembered Picasso's habit of creeping up behind people on the beach, waiting for them to stoop over to pick up a shell or a discarded piece of analytical cubism, and then photographing their rear. Apparently he had a remarkable collection, including some rather well-known people. Sadly, most of Picasso's bum shots have not survived, except for a large format print of Hemingway's arse, which fetched several €100,000 at a Sotheby's exhibition, auction it was, about 4 years ago. Yes. They'll never see that money again, will they? Eventually, Gerald and Sarah moved back to the US and lost touch with Picasso, and until a mutual acquaintance delivered their affectionate regards in about 1962. And Picasso replied to tell Sarah and Gerald that he was well, but that he was a millionaire and all alone. In 1927, Picasso went to Barcelona with Olga and met 17-year-old Marie-Therese Walter and had a secret affair with her. Now, secret's a very loaded word, and I think his idea of what a secret was is probably different to that which you and I would think. Picasso also slept with Nouche, the model and wife of his close friend Paul Eluard, poet, co-founder of Surrealism and Pinko Comic Cockhold. Picasso later told his second wife, Françoise Gillot, that Eluard turned a blind eye to his affair with Nouche, something that Picasso saw as the ultimate test of friendship. Some might see it as the ultimate betrayal of friendship. But as Picasso put it, sleeping with Nouche was also a gesture of friendship on his part too. He only did it to make Eluard happy and didn't want him to think he didn't like his wife. You think I'm making that up, don't you? No, I'm not. In 1935, Picasso separated from Olga, refusing to divorce her, as, being a tight ass as well as a philanderer, he did not want to split his wealth. She followed him around Paris for 3 days with a revolver. The following month, Picasso invited Sabates, now living in South America, to return and manage his business affairs. Then Marie-Therese gave birth to a girl she called Maya. She carried on an affair with Picasso for years, hoping in vain that one day he would marry her, until she hanged herself 4 years after his death, by which time she realised it was just not going to happen. In November 1935, Sabates arrived in Paris and became Picasso's secretary.
Pablo, are we going to the fancy dress party?
Yeah, I thought I might go as a minotaur.
Again?
Or a centaur.
Oh, good. Oh, yes, that's good. I'm going as a snake. I'll need help with drinks.
In the same year, Picasso met the photographer and painter Dora Maar. He painted Dora often, and both she and Mary Therese seemed to have a need to be painted, however unflattering the results. Personally, look, after his rose period, I wouldn't want my portrait done by Picasso, unless I was the Elephant Man.
Oh, Picasso. It's almost a photographic likeness.
And Hitler was not a fan. No. In 1937, in addition to bombing Guernica and killing just under 4,000 people, the Nazis held an exhibition in Munich called Degenerate Art. Works seized for the exhibition included paintings by Picasso, Dali, Van Gogh, Ernst, Klee, and Leger. Across the road, in a newly built gallery, was a rival exhibition, Great German Art, displaying giant heroic statues and traditionalist paintings with Teutonic or classical themes. But the Degenerate Art Exhibition did not halt modernism in its tracks as planned. In fact, it got more visitors than the Reich-sanctioned art across the road. I suspect Goebbels exaggerated his abilities to undermine an art movement.
Mein Führer, have I got you at a bad time? I just wanted to discuss the Degenerative Art Exhibition. You like the title? Yeah, well, I think it says it like it is, yeah. Yeah, okay, I will pitch the concept. Basically, we will hang the paintings haphazardly. Yeah, but also with subversive slogans to undermine the expressionist trash. It will be hilarious. No, the paintings will be hung higgledy-piggledy. Of course, mein Führer, always equidistant apart. Yeah. Not level at uncomplimentary angles. Yeah, well, they could be level in respect to each other, but the overall effect will be devastating and modernism will never recover. Yeah, I shall see personally that Picasso is hung skew with. What? Yeah? Upside down? Yeah, no one will know that's the difference. Mein Führer, that is hilarious. You have a superior sense of humor. Yeah, I know. He treats his women abominably. Yeah, he's nothing to look at. Short, fat, peasant, surrounded by lackeys who tell him he's genius, and when he draws like a monkey with a mental defect. Opening night will be a hoot. Yeah, mein Führer, as long as that pesky Indiana Jones does not turn up. And catering, yeah. No peanut with anaphylactic surprises. Yeah, no, it's good. And pasties. You know, you just put them in the oven and you look like a hero. Ricotta and mushroom, yeah. No, Goering doesn't like them. There'll be plenty of food, yeah. Yeah, good, mein Führer. Yeah, heil yourself. After the exhibition, some paintings were auctioned off. Others were burnt in 1942. Some paintings were discovered by the Red Army after the war, and recent documents under the Freedom of Thought Act reveal that Sydney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre were working as foreign agents at the time and made off with several of the works featured in tonight's exhibition. Very, very, very good haul, my friend. The Nazis will never suspect us. Now, we must get these paintings out of Munich and back to the modernists via Casablanca. But until we do, we can store them with the Maltese Falcon at Rick's Cafe.
Yes, Sydney, taken right from under the Nazis' noses. We were so inconspicuous, what with the fortunate gunplay caused by the archaeologist Mr. Jones.
Indeed, Mr. Lorre, indeed. Now I must get out of this chair before I break it. Put me down.
But Picasso was not only under siege from the occupying Nazi forces. His communist ties, although ended by 1935, had lowered the value of his work in the American market.
Pablo, Kahnweiler says his American buyers are not happy with Dora's portrait.
Yeah, do I care?
Well, it's just that Americans don't want to pay as much anymore.
Is it because I was a communist? It's because I was a communist. Yeah, no, I'm being targeted. That's why they're not buying, because I was a communist.
Also, they say if they pay full price, they should get both eyes.
It's a profile. I told him to explain what a profile means. It's side on, it's a profile.
Yes, but he just wants to know, would it hurt to paint both eyes in anyway, like you used to?
Bugger it all right. But both eyes, full price.
I'll pass it on.
In 1939, Barcelona fell to Franco and Hitler marched on Prague. Meanwhile, Picasso played Dora and Marie-Therese off against each other, painting portraits of them in the same pose in the same studio. Dora Maar was on call for Picasso. She only came to the studio on special occasions. Otherwise, their arrangement was Pablo would telephone when he wanted to see her. She never knew whether she would be having lunch or dinner with him, not from one meal to the next. And she had to remain in a holding pattern of permanent availability so that he phoned or dropped by, he would find her there. She could never just drop into his place or phone to say she would not be available for dinner. Once, the painter André Baudin asked Dora to eat with him, but she told him she couldn't say yes or no until dinner time because if she made a date with him and then Pablo called to say that he was coming to take her out, he would be furious that she had made other plans. Dora's mental health declined over the years and later she was treated by the psychoanalyst and philosopher Jacques Lacan.
Pablo, how about this? Who would be a muse? It rhymes with use and abuse, but also choose.
You got any mail?
Yes, there's a bill for 1 kilo of cubed black sausage, and the farmer's wife wants to know why you drew her cross-eyed.
During World War II, rich and famous painters were allowed to work and live freely in occupied Nazi Europe unless Jewish, homosexual, gypsy or otherwise politically undesirable. Officially, Picasso was not allowed to exhibit, and the Nazis did harass him from time to time, but this was nothing compared to the intrigues of his own household.
Pablo, from now on, I'm going to park my bicycle in the hallway. Some thief stole my seat and handlebars.
Oh, yeah? That's no good?
No good at all. I was in quite a rush yesterday. It's a wonder I can still walk.
Picasso had contacts in the underground, and apparently it was important to the resistance that he keep working. Note the curious subject matter of Man and Sheep, drawn in Paris, February 1943, and the same subject cast in bronze later that month. The occupying Nazi authorities had outlawed the owning of dogs as pets because Hitler believed that they were superior to non-Aryans, and sheep were quite acceptable, though not as smart as dogs. They represented the ideal Third Reich citizenry. So it was common to see Parisian men carrying sheep around as a fashion accessory. The Nazis allowed Picasso to paint, but as bronze casting was illegal, he had to be supplied in raw materials by the resistance, who refused to carry sheep and made them walk. The French resistance recognised Picasso's pet sheep series as an ironic and devastating subversion of the Nazi regime, which I think Goebbels never fully recovered from. And it's useful to reflect that Himmler, famous for his pet goat named Heidi, was banned from bringing her to Berchtesgaden because of her tendency to eat the wool-rich swastika picnic rugs that the Nazi high command liked to use. Picasso's contact for the resistance was his washerwoman, Madame Joan Metcalfe.
Monsieur Picasso, how you going, you dirty old prick?
Yeah, shut up, Joan.
Listen, love, I'll park my lorry out the back so you can throw your dirty laundry straight in, and I've got some bronze offcuts for you.
Yeah, good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather be blowing up train tracks myself. But it's a living.
An active member of the French resistance, Joan Metcalfe was caught walking her dog after midnight in January 1943. She tried to pass it off as a sheep, but was arrested when it barked at a passing cat. Though disguised as an American airman at the time, she was sent to Stalag Luft 3 prison camp, from which she eventually escaped by jumping over the fence on a motorbike, and was present for the liberation of Paris in August 1944. After the war, she became estranged from Picasso when she published a Kafkaesque novella entitled Stains from a Marriage. It was about a promiscuous painter who ends up marrying his self-portrait. Before the liberation, though, Separated had grown increasingly paranoid, certain that all Germans were spies, and after the war, he was sure all the English officers were members of the Secret Service. One day, he noticed a GI with an unfamiliar shoulder patch and warned Picasso not to say anything to him.
Pablo, actually, I know quite a lot about this sort of thing. I knocked around Central America for almost 30 years, and I had to go underground. You know, they tried to wipe out experimental poetry. Many a town I was driven out, let me tell you.
Separated and Picasso even developed a secret code that they could communicate with through enigmatic messages left lying around the house. There were rules. One never mentioned a proper name, nor referred directly to any event or situation, and one spoke of it only by allusion to something else.
Pablo, the cat in the hat has come back.
Tell her she's dead to me. They worked so hard at disguising the meaning of the notes they left for each other that at times they would have to examine older notes to decipher the message that had been left lying around.
Is that a bee or a toucan eating brioche?
And the young art student who witnessed all this and recorded it in monotonous detail was Françoise Gillot. She was 40 years his junior. At the end of World War II, they moved in together and Dora Maar took a back seat. Gillot had 2 children with Picasso, Paloma and Claude, and Picasso told Gillot that for him there are only 2 kinds of women, goddesses and doormats. It was her opinion that whenever he thought she might be feeling too much like a goddess, he turned her into a doormat. What a catch. And from this period, downstairs, are 2 photographs of Picasso by Robert Capa. The first taken in 1948. It's a low-angle 3 shot of Picasso on the beach carrying a parasol for Françoise. Xavier Velato, Picasso's nephew, follows them sniggering. His parasol is broken because he had just tried to spear a passing marlin. Normally it was the woman who held a parasol over Picasso, but Gillot was the only one ever to refuse him, and also holds the distinction of being the only woman to leave him, and for that matter is still alive, but could not be in Sydney tonight to refute my claims. The second Capa photograph downstairs is of Picasso standing next to a copy of the antique Michelangelo's Slave. Such knockoffs were popular as garden furniture, and Picasso filled his backyard with replica statuary. They were expensive, and in this picture he holds the price tag behind his back. And note also that in both photographs he wears exactly the same shorts with black leather belt, open floral shirt, and bare feet. He kept the same pair of feet his whole life. There are several theories as to why Picasso didn't change his clothes between 1948 and 49, but none of them make any sense. It was a hard winter, and there are various accounts of him buttoning his floral shirt only when it stormed. And such stoicism was quite typical of the macho image he seemed determined to portray into old age when he started storing his underpants in the freezer. In 1965, Gillot published her book Life with Picasso in the United States, and Picasso tried to prevent her from publishing it in French because prior to that he thought he was safe from anyone reading it in English in Paris. And then James Separated, the failed poet, gatekeeper, died in 1968, 5 years before his master. He was allowed 1 phone call from heaven.
Pablo, I'm just calling to say I've left this mortal coil, but I'm all right.
What do you mean you died on me?
No, there's no need to get prickly. Dying is quite discombobulating, you know.
Yeah, all right.
I'm sorry. Look, Jacqueline can take over. Look, how about I donate 58 canvases to the Picasso Museum in Barcelona as a tribute?
You would do that for me? I mean, that's very generous. Oh, look, I have to go. Madame Metcalfe is having a picnic with Himmler's goat. I'll see you in about 5 years.
Picasso was prolific for the rest of his life, painting cross-eyed passion and value-for-money profiles. Jacqueline Roque, who married him in '64, stayed with him for the rest of his life until he died during dinner on the 8th of April 1973 and could no longer give the marriage the attention it needed. As far as we know, he remained celibate from that point on. Jacqueline prevented Claude and Paloma from attending the funeral. She, in turn, shot herself in 1986 at the age of 59. The behavioural psychologist Whitlow Dewberry describes such a pattern as genius fallout, voracious creativity, attracting fame and wealth, followed by betrayal, grief, and death. And the King's Court model for domestic life, with gatekeepers, ladies and men in waiting, intrigue, spies and supplicants, is one to witness on a smaller scale, with much lesser artists and celebrities with publicists in any city. So to conclude, Picasso was flawed, like all our great artists, thinkers and talk show hosts. But when was the last time you saw a decent film about a perfect person? Or read a book you couldn't put down because the protagonist's home life was blissful? Oh, what's going to happen next? Oh, nothing, just nice things. Name me one famous, perfect person, apart from Jesus Christ, who was born into the job anyway. Messy paintings, messy life. Picasso's art was constantly groundbreaking, as opposed to his personal life, which was constantly heartbreaking. Well, you can't be good at everything. Thank you and good night.